Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Carvers and Creators. We are streaming live today to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Please consider giving us a like and a follow. And please let us know in the comments where you're watching from or if you have a question for our Carvers and Creators. My name is Michael Mondragon and I'll be running the show and moderating the comments and chiming in from time to time. We have an international panel of guests today. Let me first introduce the pumpkin carvers for the show. He is carving out of a secret underground lair somewhere in Boston, Massachusetts. He was also the 2019 winner of Outrageous Pumpkins on Food Network. Please welcome a craft beer enthusiast like myself, Paul Dever. Welcome.
How are we doing, everyone?
Yay, well,
Welcome,
listen
Paul.
to all that applause. My God. Next up, he was a finalist on Halloween Wars 2019 on the Food Network as a member of Team Buttercream Beast. He is from Tucson, Arizona, but carving today out of a log cabin somewhere in Colorado. Please wish steady Wi-Fi internet reception to Matt Harper.
Thank you. Thank you, Mickey.
My pleasure.
Glad to be here.
And our creator for today is from Ontario, Canada. She is a cake artist and baker and, quote, mama to the best little boys out there. She competed last year against Matt in Halloween Wars and was a member of Team Trio of Terror. Please welcome to Carvers and Creators the incredibly talented Kristen Eagles. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
My pleasure. So let me change this
Awesome.
up. Kristen, you are our first international guest, and I feel it only that you should definitely show us around your kitchen right there, because what is your workspace like?
Yeah, so my workspace is pretty much like anyone else's kitchen. I feel inspired, actually. We purchased this house, and I was already making cakes, and I wanted to make sure that I had a space that I, could be in for an extended amount of time. So we've got like a cool exposed brick wall and things like that, and fridges, and I can keep an eye on my kids. And I love, she's broken right now, but sorry, it's backwards here. So I've got my like big oven and I love it. I've got a lot of mixers. And then I just have, instead of having just typical utensil drawers, I have drawers with powdered pigments and X-Acto knives and measuring cups and food coloring and stencils and molds and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty much like anybody else's kitchen, I guess. I don't know. I wish I had some crazy space, but I think
it's magic to us, believe me.
Well, I think sometimes people envision people making cakes and these
I don't think I can make a box. Of course, I'm on delay. Sorry, go ahead, Kristen.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I think, sometimes when I go visit friends, like last year, I went to a friend in Toronto's commercial kitchen. And I think this is amazing and it's super cool and it's easier to make a mess and clean it up. And, but this works for me for now until maybe my kids are older and then I take on a new adventure or something. Yeah.
I like it. It's got personality. It's not a basement, but it's something.
Yeah, it's hard though because it's the center of the house. So late nights, like most of the cakes that I do, I start after 9 o'clock at night. So
Wow.
if it's 4 a.m. and I know that my kids are getting up at 6 a.m, you have to do dishes and you have to put stuff away. So yeah.
Oh wait, I got a question about that because I know you do a lot of baking and stuff like that in the middle of the night, and you're a kind of a night owl. So is that really when you do your best work? Is like after the kids are all asleep, or is that the only time you can do it?
It's the only time I can do it, and it's become the best as well. Okay. But I don't know if it's what came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't really know. I think it's just what you have to do and you make it work. So yeah, it's there are days where I wish. I mean, today I tried to venture out and work on a cake and I literally took my eyes off of my 6-year-old and 4-year-old for 2 seconds, and I went in the kitchen and they had their hand in buttercream, like literally like a full fist of buttercream. It's just, and then you're like, okay, now I remember why I do everything at night. So yeah.
Kids live in a candy store.
Well, I think that the thing that's really funny though is like I'll make something like a FedEx parcel box, and my 2-year-old will start singing happy birthday. I'm like, how many people's 2-year-old kids see like a FedEx box and just assume that it's a birthday cake? Yeah, and sometimes I think they get jealous if I make something that they really like for someone else. But yeah, I think they're pretty lucky, and I don't think they know how lucky they are to have like unique birthday cakes. But I know a girlfriend of mine, I went over to visit her parents who I hadn't seen in like 15 years, and her mom pulled out an old photo album of cakes that she'd made for her kids over the years. So it was like, a square, like a rectangle cake that was iced, but she used Smarties for like typewriter keys. And I just think like how it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be a pro baker or cake maker to make like awesome memories for your kids. And if you like making stuff, just make it.
Yeah.
I used to do that with candles. I couldn't bake very much, but I could sculpt a little bit. So I would make like the Rancor or Falcor from the Never Ending Story.
Yeah.
In a tray, you had the candle in his hand, so it was extended. But it weighed probably 3 pounds, so it had to be propped on the cake with like a permit. It was really tough to keep steady.
Yeah. Well, even now, I think since being on Halloween Wars, like I think I've learned some smart things. Like you can make anything out of rice cereal treats, but it's not always the smartest thing to make like toppers out of rice cereal treats. Yeah. So, there are times where I will use, like, I'll carve styrofoam, which in no way, like, rice cereal treats is actually easier to carve than styrofoam. But I'll use that because I want something that's going to last and not weigh, like 6 million pounds and get to the client. So, yeah.
So when you were on Halloween Wars, is that the first time you started really heavily using Rice Krispie, or what do you call them? I remember one thing is we're not allowed to say Rice Krispie treats, even though that's what they are. Rice cereal treats. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So I used rice cereal treats quite a bit, but I was always the type of person that didn't like anybody watching me do anything. So like even when I was in university, like we would have time to work in studio. Like I took some visual arts, and I don't know why I was so self-conscious. Like I'd be like, oh, trust me, it'll look good eventually. But that stage where things look bad, I was never comfortable with that. So when I went on Halloween Wars, I really felt like a fish in water, and I was very uncomfortable with like the whole process. And I think I was a bit shell shocked. I don't know if you remember, Matt, but I was like, I don't even. What did I sign up for? But it ended up being like a huge blessing because I met some really amazing people, like, with like you, Matt. And then, in this world that you're in, Matt, I've met Paul and like a bunch of other really amazing creative people. But then I've also picked up a lot of hacks and tricks. And I think anybody, doing something creative can relate to that feeling where you're like, oh my gosh, somebody has this like little thing that's saving me 3 hours. Like,
yeah.
Yes. The tips and tricks are where it's at.
Yeah.
That's funny you say that. Yeah. Like my only thought is, like when it comes to like, trying to get a more realistic face out of a piece of produce. Now that's kind of the little world I'm living in versus what you make. But when I watch Paul or I watch other folks that we just admire, that Paul and I admire, oh, look at that. I mean, come on. I mean, what?
Isn't that amazing?
It's insane.
That's my favorite one.
Oh, thanks.
It's just getting those little tips and tricks help each successive thing a little bit more and a little bit more. So it's just all about growing.
I agree. And I think it's about like supporting the people on their journey, like that want to learn, and then also, being humble and knowing that like there's always somebody better that you can admire instead of being envious of. You can admire them and learn from them. from them.
Right.
Yeah, but I really love doing the like face sculptures this year. Somebody on my Instagram, and if they're watching, I don't know, but they sent me something in a DM after Halloween last year, and I want to try to make it, but it's like a human head that is being carved. Like it's not gory, but a human head that's being carved with like a scared face, and then there's a little boy and girl with like jack-o'-lantern heads carving like.
Oh,
The reverse.
Yeah, but it's
Twist on
really
it.
yeah, it's really cool. Because
Oh, cool.
I do enjoy doing faces a lot, and that's I think why I love seeing what you guys do too. Because you know, there's a lot of cake makers out there, and I the same. Like I find faces the most challenging, but I still love them. But that's all you guys do is faces. So what most people are afraid of doing, I admire because that's what you basically commit to doing all the time.
I get made fun of for it actually by the pumpkin illustrators when we go to do a show, and they're trained artists and they're amazing. So I'll say, "Oh, what are you going to do tonight?" And they'll be like, "Well, it's going to be like a farm scene or like a spooky haunted house off in the distance with perspective." And then they'll go, "What are you going to do? A face?"
Oh, I can't believe that.
It's said with jest, so I like it. I think it's funny.
Well, as long as it's received well.
Yeah, it's amazing how like oh look at come on. All right, I'm just gonna look up every now and then and just keep saying, oh my God, look at that. I am so in awe of your ability to. I mean, this is creative beyond creative when it's made of cake, and I love the ability for you to get the real textures. I mean, if you looked at those maggots or worms or whatever they are, and I would be hard pressed to look at a real one and think that wasn't real. I mean, and the things you do from like you made a Starbucks cup that just blew my mind one day,
Yeah.
and I don't the thing the texture on the outside of a steak or the sheen or the gloss. I know that there's specific products that help with that, but I mean your brain is cooking 100 miles an hour when you're in this mix. How what was your first like hyper realistic looking cake?
That's a good question. So I could be wrong because I don't have my Instagram up in front of me. But really kind of, I would say the transition in the styles of cake that I did, like there's a huge shift in my Instagram and in my body of work when I did that Pennywise It cake. That was
okay.
That was kind of like the first, like somebody would look at it and be like, oh, that's really a cake. And then I think that kind of fueled a fire. And then after that, I would say probably it was making steak cakes because I used to work for a steakhouse, and one of our main our steak supplier asked me to make it. So every year I make something different. So the first year I made like a raw New York strip loin, and then the next year I made like bone-in ribeye, and then last year I made a lobster tail and fillet. Yeah, so there, and that was really big. The problem with that,
how big
and again, yeah, so I only have a single front door, and so I bought this cake board, and I baked all the cake, which took a long time, and I had everything planned out, and then I realized the night before that if I were to put the cake on and decorate it. So I did everything was done in one night, but I had to drive to my parents' house 40 minutes away because they have a double door so I could get it out. And we had to use 4x6s, almost like you'd pick up like, I don't know, an Egyptian pharaoh in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I love the thing I like about cake is nobody can tell you that you can't do it that way. So like I'll use piping jelly, which, if you go to Dairy Queen and you get like happy birthday written on, that's that jelly stuff they use. And I'll water it down with vodka because it'll evaporate. And I'll use that to make like, a jus type liquid, but it's all kind of like mad science. And you're like, I'll crush up these sprinkles and see if I can make them look like steak spice or soak them overnight with food colorings. So it's kind of like mad science.
Phenomenal.
You cleared the fog for me with the spices when you said you crushed up the sprinkles, because I thought you actually put spices on it.
No, yeah. Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes the experiments don't work, which is
That's why they're experiments, right?
which is yeah, exactly. So sometimes they don't work, which can be frustrating because, like, I'm sure just like a pumpkin, like I'm sure you guys have carved pumpkins and then you break a pivotal piece, and if you can't get it back on, then
you throw it off the table and start again.
And that's why I really like to try to make something, but I'm afraid.
Oh, don't be afraid.
Yeah, being subtractive, and Paul and I have talked about this on other shows. Being subtractive, it's like you have a certain limit before you pop through. And this crazy looking little gourd that I picked up at the grocery store before I came up, I had no idea what to expect. And a lot of times you can kind of get a feel for if it's heavy, you think the walls are thicker, you have a little bit more room to work in. But yeah, when it's subtractive, you're just kind of dancing on that tightrope for a little while until you break through, and it's just like what you were talking about. It's experimenting. It's starting to get a real good feel for something, or knowing your medium really well, like you do, and you can get more and more creative, and push yourself a little harder and further each time. So I love that. I love the fact that you're just like mad sciencing it. Mad sciencing it. Mad science.
It's a word now.
It works.
It's a word. We're gonna make that a word.
So Matt, I know you think that's a gourd, but you are in Colorado. Is that possibly a Colorado oyster or a Rocky Mountain oyster?
Those are smaller. And no, if this was a Rocky Mountain oyster, I would not want to meet the bull it was attached to. That'd be bad. But yeah, I'm in Colorado, and behind me, if you can see, it's not a backdrop. That's legit trees.
Wow.
And there's if you can see it off in the distance, there's a beautiful river going by. It's a stream. River's called the Dolores River. I'm near Telluride, in the southwest corner of Colorado. But we're at this cabin, and again, I'm just praying for good Wi-Fi at this point. That's all I've got going for me besides this.
So far, so good, Matt. Really good. Actually, better than Arizona, to be honest.
I'm gonna stay here then. That's it. I'm moving here.
It doesn't look like a bad spot to land.
Oh, I'll tell you. And it was 106, I think, yesterday in Tucson. So, and I think I was most of the day I spent in a jacket here. So I could not be happier. Yeah.
Blood's a little thick right now. Thin, sorry.
I know. I'm not used to it. You guys, you Northerners, you got me beat.
Yeah, my wife yells at me because in January I'll be in shorts and a sweatshirt outside.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Hey, does anybody realize what today is? I'm sure you all do, but has anybody said it? It's 100 days till Halloween.
Oh, nobody said that.
100 days.
Let's do a little
100 days of Halloween.
Let's do a little toast then.
Oh, I can do a toast of my.
With the Diet Coke. That works.
There we go. Hey,
Mike, what do you think of the color on this one, huh? That's a beauty. That one's coming your way.
I got Diet Coke in this, if that helps.
Oh, do you?
The rest is whiskey, so
yeah, Bacardi, yeah.
So also, Kristen, Paul, it's opening day.
That's right.
Baseball.
That's right. That's a twofer right now.
Yeah.
Halloween and opening.
I'll drink to both.
Opening day in July, of course, makes all the sense in the world.
Unbelievable right now.
The question is, does everyone have like right now? I'm saving boxes, collecting boxes for family Halloween costumes. I already have plans of here are the cakes that I want to do that are Halloween themed, which I'll probably end up doing 50% of that. And but you have to shoot high, aim high, and then you can get them done. And the costumes, I create my own stress during Halloween because I always try not to take any orders because I don't know, I just love making it's my favorite holiday, obviously. So I just want to get in as much as I can.
Of course. My who's got the echo? My kids are starting to get a little bit older, where last year they wanted store-bought costumes. It was actually very, very sad because I do like making them for them as well.
I make my kids wear the homemade costumes, but then I let them have trick-or-treat costumes. Just throw me a bone. That is a piece of sushi. And then you can wear a skin-tight leotard Spider-Man that you're going to have to wear a winter coat over anyway. So Yeah.
I wish I had a picture of that. If you guys haven't seen, because you've posted that, right, Kristen? You've posted what you make and okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's on my
no,
Instagram. Yeah.
okay, knowing it's on your Instagram, anybody who's watching, do yourself a favor, follow her anyway. The girl next door bakes. But when you go to her site and you're looking through and you're seeing cake after amazing cake, you're going to get to a point where you see three cutest kids in the world, and they're going to be dressed in legit, probably the best and most amazing homemade costumes I've ever seen. The sushi ones last year were out of this world.
Yeah.
So, and then you guys were also, you and your husband were sushi'd out, right? Weren't you guys eat something as well?
Yeah, he was soy sauce and I was wasabi and ginger.
That's so great. That is so great.
Do
See,
you already
creativity can expand, you know?
Do you know what you're going to be this year? You already
I
have
know.
that?
So every year at Halloween, as soon as Halloween's over, I know what we're doing the following year. So this year we're probably gonna have two. If my husband's watching in the other room, he doesn't know this, but we're gonna have two family costumes this year. My kids, the one that we're doing, I can say because it's not like a super crazy homemade. I'm gonna do homemade elements, but we're gonna go as my kids. I grew up watching Scooby-Doo, like that was my favorite thing. So they really like Scooby-Doo right now. So I was gonna buy, those little cars that are red, like they're like
Cozy Coop. Cozy Coop.
Probably, yeah, a Cozy Coop. I want to try to spray paint that and paint it as a mystery machine for my youngest.
Oh,
very cool.
Yeah, do Scooby-Doo. But I have another one that is going to be more labor intensive. But that's why I'm getting the boxes for. So that one will be the exciting one.
That's also why you start in September, I'm sure, too.
Yeah.
So that one's gonna be more of a surprise, right?
Yeah,
not divulging that one yet. And
I'm always like, I know that I can finish it, but I'm always like, I don't want to commit to something, and I can't finish it.
That's funny that you said that. We do a lot of camping in the summer, and this year we do how the Halloween is early, and at the campgrounds it's in September, and we did the Scooby-Doo theme. It was all the kids were the villains. So
that's cute.
My wife and I and another couple, we went as the crew, and then the littlest one did Scooby-Doo, and then all the other kids were the villains.
Oh, that's really cute.
Yeah, it was fun.
I collect. This is like a nerd fact. Every year Hallmark comes out with 2 ornaments every year at Christmas, and they have like one that has like a mechanism in it, so it makes noise, and then the other one's like a little bit more basic. But every year I get 2 new ornaments for the tree. Yeah.
That's not very
happening for years.
That's how you get the best ornaments.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to build it up over the years.
Those things floating around anymore. Usually it's 1 year and then you don't see them ever again.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, when you first started carving cakes, did you see somebody like we did, like how Matt and I were inspired by like Ray?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because I think I started doing cakes because of Instagram, which is, I know that there's an ugly side of Instagram, but I think that seeing what all the 3 of you are doing with your Instagram, I think is like really the positive. It's like show and tell, and it's inspiring, and I think it's wonderful. And that's how I always want to keep my Instagram as well. Like, hey, I made this, check it out. I'm not saying it's amazing. Sometimes it's just a learning thing, and I'm saying, hey, I did this and learned from it. But when I got Instagram, just in my my main feed, some cakes started showing up. And then as I followed more accounts, other accounts showed up. And I just, saw like cooler and cooler things. So definitely, I know this sounds bad, but like now I can list people who I would say these are my kind of cake idols. At the time, it was just this slow progression where I was like, the first cake I wanted to make was literally chevron bottom tier and then a solid top tier. Like that was like, to me, I was like, if I can do this, like I got it made. And I think it just kind of was like, okay, what's the next challenge? What's the next thing? And I always, when I was in high school, when in art class with play, like that was always the area that I excelled in. And so it just felt like kind of like a switch went off, and I was like, I've always wanted to do sculpture, and this is kind of the perfect marriage between like, you know, cakes and celebrating things, which joy, and then, you know, the sculpting kind of side of things that I thought, you know, I really thought that ship had sailed for me.
Wow.
Well, it obviously
when
did.
When did you start? What, like, at what age did you already have your? They don't have to tell us your age, but I mean, like, I'm so used to. I have 3 daughters, so I have no filter when it comes to girls. But when it so because I didn't start. You mentioned, you know, you thought that ship had sailed. I hadn't started doing any kind of carving like this, you know, 3D sculpture like this until I had kids. I was, you know, just kind of tired of doing, you know, the jack-o'-lanterns, the three triangles in the mouth, you know. So I was I just love to know kind of what you'd already had your kids at that point, and you were starting to.
Yeah. So my biggest memory, I don't know, this is maybe not related. This is a really long-winded answer, which seems to be the trend. But my dad, like,
we got time.
We grew up going to the beach, and like my memories are my dad's quite creative, and honestly, in my mind, like my art idol growing up. He'd always sketch things, but when we went to the beach, he would make sand sculptures. So he would make like a motorcycle out of the sand. And I think that's kind of, and my mom always made like homemade bread. So it's like this weird kind of, without realizing it, I kind of traits from my parents and put them together. But to be honest, I really didn't like, I took an art program in school and I really didn't like it. And I think it kind of turned me off of the arts. And then my son was born, and then I got into a totally different, you know, line of work and life. And it just kind of was on the back burner. Like I didn't really even tell people that I did anything artistic or creative. And after I had my oldest son, he was like premature, and it was a really, like, to be honest, like quite traumatic. And so when I started planning his first birthday, I knew how expensive cakes were for a reason, because so much work goes into them, but I knew I couldn't afford that. So honestly, I think everything was driven this is like the cheesy Hallmark thing, but like I just love my kids so much, and I wanted them to have these really cool memories, and that's what spiraled it all. Like that's what started it all.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what about you? I know you actually kind of already answered that question on another episode, right, Paul?
Why I started?
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the kids. You almost, it's like showing off for the children. Look what I can do.
That's how. Same here.
Yeah. And then they go, I really don't care.
Well, but they don't.
Everybody care yet. They will one day. That's what I feel like I spend most of my day going, one day you're going to look back. One day, kiddo.
Yeah. I think it's like, for me, it's almost like saying to your kids, like you can say to your kids, like, hey, you can do anything. But when your kids see you doing, like, you know, you guys were on like, you know, national Food Network TV shows and stuff. Like when you're actually doing that stuff, it shows them that they really can do. And it also elevates the arts. It's not just a hobby. Like, you know, if you really excel in something, things that are a hobby can become more than that.
I agree.
Hey, Kristen, one of our viewers on YouTube asked, what are you making right now?
Oh, it's a good question. Okay. So I actually was just using one of the many things. Sorry. I was just using this like goopy looking, it looks like turkey gravy kind of, and I was just glazing. So I've actually, I'm working on a chicken pot pie cake. Sorry, it's so hard to find the right angle. So I've actually used, the lighting's not so great. Sorry, guys. So I've carved it, and then I've actually used vanilla pudding, and I was just putting a glaze on this corn on the cob. So the corn on the cob, it's fondant. I could have put cake in the middle, but I was lazy. So it's, you know, leading up to this show and just right now, I was actually just putting some gradation on the individual kernels, because, you know, I can use an out-of-the-box yellow, but then if you look at a real corn on the cob, it's got, you know, darker and lighter kind of like white and yellow kernels. And yeah, that's what I'm working on. I don't know. Does that read okay?
Yeah, no,
oh my God,
yeah. Fantastic. And
it's actually making me hungry, to be honest.
Oh my God, totally. And one question I have for you, and I'm actually going to pull up I'm gonna pull up this
Yes.
because I mean it's ridiculous how
It's staggering.
like it is it's not even, I can't even fathom it, how you made it and what it's made out of, and then you kind of wrap your head around like the bacon and like what that could be. It's like, it's incredible. But have you ever seen they have them out here, a lot of the like I would go to like a place, there's a place that used to be out here in Los Angeles called Curry House. So a lot of like Japanese types of restaurants, in their windows, they would have these types of things, but they were made out of like, you know, I'm not sure what they were made out of actually. But I mean, like, this is actually something you could physically eat, correct?
Yeah. So this was really fun. I made this for my mother-in-law's birthday, and we actually like brought it out for brunch to like, the restaurant and stuff. So that's always like fun because other people like seeing it. But yeah, like this cake in particular, basically I stacked a cake for the pancakes, and then you do ribbons of fondant around it, and then you kind of flatten the ribbons, and you paint each kind of level, and then and then like the eggs were the most satisfying thing to make because
burnt on the edges. It's amazing.
And so the best part, the best thing is like all the fun tools that you get to use, like a blowtorch. So because fondant is essentially like a marshmallow based, it burns and chars like a marshmallow. So I was like, oh, this will be perfect, use around the edges. And then I kind of liquefied piping gel so that I made that almost I don't want to use too disgusting a word, but it almost looks like there's a layer of that clear over the yolk. I don't know how to call it, but and then the avocado was really fun because modeling chocolate, which I know you guys have worked with, is, to be honest, like if you think about the texture of an avocado, modeling chocolate to me has that same kind of like, it's got that oiliness that an avocado has. So I actually just, dyed the modeling chocolate that green color. I formed it into the avocado shape, and I actually just sliced it with a sharp knife, and it looked exactly like, avocado. So,
sliced avocado.
And then the bacon was just an experiment where I strips of different colors of fondant and rolled them together, and then burnt it and used edible food paint, and I did like whatever I could till I was like, yeah, this is what it is. So
like the level of detail is insane. So I mean, I'll throw this out to the group. I mean, as an artist myself, I have my own answer for this question, but I want to throw it to the group. Like, how do you know like when to stop? Like I said, the detail. I mean, even the salt on the eggs is like insane. Like, or the pepper. Sorry, but I mean that's such an amazing touch. I mean, just like, down to the blueberries, down to the down to everything. It's really crazy. So like, where do you stop?
Do you guys, Matt or Paul, want to answer first?
Sure. At the end, when you're finished. When you can't figure out, when your next step feels like it's going to ruin the whole thing. That's when I stop. When I feel like if I make one more cut or one extra detail, and I'm just going to knock everything out of alignment. Or it's 5 o'clock in the morning, whichever one. You're run out of time mentally too.
Or you're actually one extra beer than you should have had, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an equation that plays into it sometimes. Only with me and you, though, man.
That's all right.
Not in a professional. Not if I'm not on a gig.
No.
But yeah, just it feels right. Right? I mean, you can work on something forever, but you can only go so far. I mean, nothing is ever going to be perfect to the artist, right? You're always going to find something that you don't love, even if it's one little tiny aspect of it. But that's what artists do, right? You nitpick yourself. So I don't know. Matt, you have a better answer than that, because I don't know. No, it's different every time. I usually just get like, oh, that's done. Like the internal clock goes off. Well, not much more I can do.
Yeah. I had a great professor one time tell me that art is never finished, it's just abandoned. So if you just know when to walk away, using Kenny Rogers. You know when to hold them, know when to fold. When I finish something, I look at it and I say I get to a point where I'm okay. That's okay. And if it's even close in my mind, I just okay. That's it. And I walk away. It's otherwise, like you said, it's just something you end up ruining because you're just keep digging at it. So
Right, and then for the rest of your life, you remember that moment, that one moment when you said, "I could have just walked away. I could have left it alone." It was 6 hours I was into that thing. Who do I think I am?
So what do you
yeah, but the nice part is when it's Kristen's creations. Yeah, I want to hear what she has to say about this.
What I have to say about when I'm
You
done?
eat it, right?
Yeah. No, well, yeah. If you don't like it, eat it. Yeah, exactly. There are some cakes that that I don't post, or there are things where my husband will be like, he comes down and opens like the fridge. We have an extra fridge there too that's like specifically just cakes. And he'll be like, "That's amazing." And I'm like, "No." Like, and I'm so dramatic and I'm so bummed out. And he's like, "Just leave it." I'm like, "Nope."
Yeah.
And then I'll like go and I'll fix it because I've either gone too far or not far enough. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, you were right. I'm glad that you did." But there are times where I'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna put this on," and I'm like, "Nope, I'm gonna take that off." And I've definitely ruined many cakes by just having that. Like I have to add more and. But I think you're right. Like there'll always be imperfections and things that in retrospect you wish that you'd done that maybe no one ever noticed. Like that skull cake. When I look at that, the one that you showed earlier with the maggots, there's one maggot I forgot to paint on the cheek. And I like know it's there. And I never pointed.
No, I know it's there.
Yeah, I know it's there.
Yeah, we all know it's there.
Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna say something.
Oh man.
Oh man.
No, my little litmus test for me, and Paul, you probably do this, and I don't know, Kristen, like you said, you have your husband kind of take a look at it. My litmus test is I've learned so well to read my kids' faces when I'm in the midst of carving something. If I'm liking it, and I just kind of like turn it around, I'm like, "Girls, what do you think?" And they look at it, oh, then I'm like, okay, shit, or darn it, I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, or I get like I can see through their pacifying dad statements, and I can see when they're actually saying something that is, whoa, that's cool. Like when I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. If I get those genuine reactions,
I'm so, maybe it's just from where I grew up, but I feel like anytime someone gives you a compliment, it's a backhanded compliment. So you're gonna be, wait a minute. So my wife's my biggest fan when it comes to that. She'll give me an honest opinion, and then sometimes she's like, "Oh, that's so awesome," and I'm like, "You didn't mean that.
You didn't mean that."
Sarcasm in there.
Yeah. Sometimes I get really defensive too. Like if I really sometimes I'll think something's not great. Like the Starbucks cake, I'm like, whatever. I'll just post it. Like that was awesome. I wasn't very enthusiastic about it. And then the response to it was so positive. And then sometimes maybe there's like some mathematical equation that somebody can put together where it's like X amount of work, X amount of creativity, X amount. And that's, some equation that gives you that feeling of, pride in what you've made. But sometimes I make something and I'm so proud of it. And Joe will be like, "Yeah, that's cool." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, maybe there's something wrong with me, or I've stopped.
Right. The creative meter is off. I've done it before. I've been like, I'm just going to toss this thing. And like, Dad, that might be the coolest one you've ever done. I'm like, oh, garbage. It's awful.
Damn it.
I'm selling my tools. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that must be like the serendipity of it all, like creating something that you didn't know would resonate with people.
Yeah.
And that's part of the adventure of this too. Something you thought, oh, this is going to be amazing, and it falls flat. But something like the Starbucks cup is like, oh my god, that's my signature piece now.
Yeah, or like when I made that, I made a turkey cake.
Yes, the turkey. Yes. And I swear to God, that cake. I'm like, just pouring alone was impressive.
And that was one of my
amazing.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorites. But I was like, oh, like people will think it's okay. And then now, like anybody that messages me is like that turkey cake. And I'm so glad that I made it because I wasn't going to. I made it for a family Christmas function because I have such a supportive and awesome extended family. So we were having a family Christmas because my dad's one of 7. So we actually have to go to like a hall, have family Christmas because it's 7 kids with like, then they had, 2 or 3 kids, then they have 2 or 3 kids. So it's pretty big. And I brought it in and my aunt Sarah was like, why are you walking in with a raw turkey? Like we're about to sit down and eat the turkey. But I've stopped. One of the things, and I don't know, I can't speak for you guys, but one of the things I've stopped doing is I just don't care anymore. Like the Instagram stuff, like I just don't care how many likes I get. Yeah. I just want to make stuff that I think is cool. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, then that's fine too, because it's not the real world, right?
You're still going to do it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Social media gives everybody an opinion, like, and a voice. So, and it probably kills more art careers than it, I hope that it doesn't kill more art careers than it builds. But, I think we're all inspired. And usually the people that don't comment are the ones that are in the majority. Yeah. So they're admiring it and they're liking it and stuff like that. Stuff that you don't really see.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I got a question for you, Kristen.
Yeah, go for it.
So I just noticed recently, there's a big, huge, real cake. Is this cake kind of Instagram or actually internet sensation going on? And I noticed on a lot of your cakes, people on Instagram on your comments just want to see it cut because they just don't believe it. Is that do you get a lot of that, like from a feedback? They're like, just cut the thing. I want to see a knife go into it. I want to see a video of it, in the layers of the cake. Is that pretty common with what you're hearing from Instagram?
Yeah, there's something about cutting through it and it not being what it looks like. People really like that. The only thing that's unfortunate is when you make something for someone else, you can't ask to make a video. Like you're like, oh, I know it's your mom's 70th birthday, but can you take this video from me? So when you drop it off, you're kind of just like, I got a couple pictures,
Yeah. Trust me, it's cake. Trust me, it's cake. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but cutting, like people sometimes say like, how can you cut into that? And I'm like, well, that's when you are creating something with the intent that it's going to be cut right away. I think it just doesn't bother me at all.
It's temporary art. I love the fact that what we do is temporary. Like it's so hard to preserve a squash or a pumpkin. So I just love the fact that you take a picture or like you make a short video where you're showing yourself cut it. And then that's it. You never see it again. You just have the memory of it.
Yeah.
I like that. Because otherwise, I have a small home and it would be filled with pumpkins because if they didn't rot, then that would be awful.
I save some things like fondant. You can preserve it for quite a while, but then like it would like sit in. We have like a room. We live in an older home, obviously. So we have one room that's like, there's the laundry, there's like a work desk, and then there's like pantry all around. So I have this pantry where I would have like all these like, like a rice cereal, fondant covered, realistic looking banana. And I'm like, why do I have this for a year? Like for what purpose was I saving that? Like, so yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul. Like, thank God it's temporary because there'd be too many things. So
right, like I'm starting to acquire a couple of them now, just because of. Let me see if I can move this here. Like this guy behind me.
I like that guy.
But that one was one of the ones where I was like, I'm just gonna toss it. And my little one was like, no, it looks like he's sleeping.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So yeah, little happy accidents. But again, how many jars of vinegar do you want full in your basement, even if they are sealed?
I always think sometimes, like, imagine you had like all these jars of heads in vinegar and like the police came and raided your house. They'd be like, what did you do?
It's not what it looks like.
Well,
it kind of is.
Yeah, my luggage was searched when I was flying back from a cake show, and I think they must have gone through my luggage and been like, "We don't know what this is, but this is weird." Like, because you just have odd paints, and then you have like a cord and a airbrush gun, and you have like it's a strange mix of materials.
Yeah, I actually
I got
had to miss a flight because all Matt and I use are knives. And
Right.
I was too late to check in by like a minute.
Oh.
And they were like, well, you just put everything in your carry-on. I'm like, I basically have a pair of boots, and jeans, a t-shirt, and like 15 knives. We're gonna have to wait for the next flight.
Last year I had something fun along those same lines. I got a chance to carve for a children's hospital in Orange County, and it was a blast. But I literally left my house in the morning, went over, carved for a few hours, met some kids, took some great pictures, and then got back on a plane. John Wayne flew back, and my experience was the same. I packed a carry-on, so I had nothing else but this carry-on that had 2 or 3 partially carved pumpkins in it, relatively small, and then I had knives and tools and all this other stuff in there as well. And when the guy opens it up, and this is my mentality. I had never taken a whole bunch of knives on a plane before, so. And he's like, no, you got to check this. And I was like, oh, but these aren't these are pumpkins. Can you take really good care of it? So I was like, I was more nervous about them, so I checked the thing, and I'm like a patient father watching my baby come down the aisle of in the luggage return, and I opened up and everything's intact. I'm like, oh God, thank you. So yeah, I wasn't even thinking about like the fact that I was bringing a whole lot of knives on a plane. So that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I didn't even think. Yeah, that poses some challenges.
Yeah, they're like, do you really need this giant? What was it here? Like this chisel by itself is like a deadly weapon. You just,
that's a beat. What do you use that for?
Death by chisel.
When I'm really getting mad, I just start hacking away at it. Originally, I used this because it's got a cool curved surface, or partially curved surface. So when I wanted to make a really big eye, I would do a circular motion on there to make this circle.
Really, and
that's
cool.
I really use it anymore, but now that Paul turned me on to these little guys, these little tin ones. Are these tin? What are these? Brass? Yeah, brass.
Yeah, Ray turned me on to those because that was the first.
These are.
I was like, how the hell do you cut perfect circles every single time? And your whole crew does too. He's like, oh, we have brass rod.
So,
like, oh.
I don't think I'm holding it in the right way, but if you can see this is a two-sided piece of rolled brass, and half of it, one side's a little smaller than the other, and they come in like 6-8 sizes, and then it's basically a half circle that's perfect. So I can get in here for an eyeball and carve, a nice perfect circle that ends up being part of the iris. So that's Paul, thank you right there.
You're very welcome, Matt. For you,
I owe you something, whatever it is. You name it.
You figure that part out when I get to Arizona. If the world.
That's true.
I have a question.
Kristen,
oh, sorry. Yeah, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. Yeah, before I let you talk, I'll just go ahead and interrupt. Did you have being in Canada? I know that the borders closed and stuff. Did you have like shows that you were going to be on, not let you cross or cancel?
Yeah. So yeah, it'll probably be I'm guessing 2 years before I get to do a show again.
Wow.
Yeah, there was one show that I was really excited about because I don't know if I'm not saying any show or what network it is, so I think I'm okay. It's mainly with involving cake sculpture. And so I was really excited when it kind of was coming down the pipe. But specifically was told no Canadians.
Wow.
That's kind of it. But it is because they don't who knows with the pandemic if there's a second wave, and the TV industry is already so negatively impacted, they can't risk Having
That's
somebody that, and the person that is actually, there's a few people that reached out to me as well about doing the show because it's teammates, and I was like, I'd love to be your teammate, but I can't do the show. So I'm kind of disappointed because now that I have a few shows under my belt, now I really enjoy them. Whereas, like, I think it took me a while to get used to the whole process. So yeah, but that's okay. I'm still happy.
I really enjoyed watching the last one in your living room with your family because you had to set up the camera because we couldn't see it in the United States.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Big Bake, which was Food Network. Yeah.
Hey, how'd you do on that?
Yeah, my team won, so that was exciting.
Loaded question there. Sorry.
I know. Yeah, and then there's another show that I do, and I know it must. So it didn't. I think it's on its third or fourth season. It's called Best Cake Wins, and I really like that show because it's a really cool concept because two bakers are given a drawing of a child's dream cake, and then two bakers have to interpret the drawing, and then they show up at a party with these two cakes, and then the child chooses which one they want to celebrate with.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool.
I think it's like, it's a really cool and really fun show. So I've been involved with 3 seasons of that, but I think it's really cute because the first season aired in Canada. I think the other seasons, I think they aired somewhere in the US, but they definitely air in India because maybe like once a month I'll get a few messages from some followers in India that are like, I watched you on the show. Like, so I know it's airing somewhere. It's just funny to be like, this is strange. Like, people live in India.
You're like international.
Totally international. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to be signing autographs one day, guys.
Now, she's going to big league us one day. She's just going to be like, sorry, guys.
I know. No. Hey, we're lucky to have her. I'm just happy right now. Let's just be happy in the moment.
No, I'm very honored to be on the show. Do you guys have any shows coming up?
I don't. Anything that I did have.
No, I mean it
was canceled. So.
Yeah.
So, but I'm all good with it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Are they going to bed, honey?
But you know what? We have a show. We have a show right now, and it's called Carvers and Creators, and you're welcome. Yeah. No, the fun thing about this little medium, and I thank Mickey and for helping us kind of get this up and off the ground, is that we now have an outlet that where if everything gets canceled, we can just do this, and if we get some viewers, great. If we're not, we're gonna do it anyway. It's like we just are just extremely happy to be able to. And I think Paul and I have talked about this many times on these other episodes, and even when we just carve, just he and I on Instagram, if we can get an outlet where we're just going to carve and have fun and BS and have a few beers in the meantime, then through this COVID thing, it's actually been a godsend in a strange way because it just now opened us up to an audience, and we're now actually practicing on things like this goofy looking melon or whatever it is, and so just giving us all primed for whatever's in front of us related to Halloween this year or not. So I'm just ecstatic to have any exposure, let alone a national show.
And to elaborate on what Matt was just saying, it's also afforded us the opportunity to actually talk and hang out with some of our favorite artists. Just from Matt and I.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just going on once a week, and John Davis and I would go on, and we kind of mix and match, and then all of a sudden it was all our favorite artists were checking in and saying, "Hey, what's going on?" So why wouldn't you want to take it to the next level and actually get to talk and get to know these people from thousands of miles away if we've got the technology to do it?
Yeah.
So I'm getting to meet all my favorite artists right now.
And that's I love watching artists work, even if it's not in my medium, because like you were saying, like Kristen doing the food is inspiring your textures probably of what you're doing. Oh, look at Kristen's what she.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Oh
we
my
can see
God.
it totally.
Look at the.
And the corn and the
Oh no.
I took a picture. I don't know if the picture reads better or not. Nope, doesn't. Nope. Nope, cancel that.
What
But
about
I can cut it for you guys if you want today too, because I took a picture. I'm not much of a
How about we-
fussy.
Let's save that for the finale or the very end, because I would love to see that thing cut. But
Okay.
I just have a. Do you when you're kind of preparing yourself to do this? Paul and I will often look at like reference pics of faces and different things, or other artists that we like. Do you take, because yours is so damn realistic? Do you take pictures of the actual pieces of food?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So right now, I have like this like little circle of treasure of frozen cake that I've been hoarding for a bit. And so before I was like, well, if there's time, which I have time, I might just cut this into a shape of prime rib. So I find that I spend a lot of times, I don't know, like I don't watch a lot of TV, just watching TV. Like I'm always doing like research things or finding inspiration for things. So I pulled up before tonight, I pulled up a couple pieces of prime rib. I know I've made a prime rib cake before, but I was trying to think of something that I could do kind of on the fly that was realistic. But I'll pull up a few images, and when I make a fit, like I never aspire to make that exact thing. I almost take like 4 pictures, because anything that's in nature or, you know, I guess, you know, a piece of meat, every single cut of meat looks different. And so I'll take elements from all the images and kind of put them together. And the best part about making something realistic is that the less perfect it is, the better it looks.
Right.
So sometimes I'll see cakes that are made and they look pretty and they look cute, and you can tell that it is a steak, but it wouldn't fool you. But maybe that's what people didn't want. Like maybe people don't want it to look too realistic, because in their mind that's kind of a turnoff. I don't know.
Like a raw turkey.
Like a raw turkey. Like maybe that's not everybody's bag. I don't know.
A win for you. It's yes, because I did think it was a raw turkey.
Thanks.
I think you bring up a really good point.
The dimples.
You bring up a really good point, because I've been a graphic designer for 30 years. And one of the things that I teach to younger designers is you can't do enough research on what you're doing. As long as you research what you're doing, what you're trying to make, the design part is the easy part if you're talented, right? You can easily, I can make that. But the hard part is doing the research. But another thing that's a perfect lesson for those people aspiring to do this is the perfections are in the imperfection.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't have to look, you don't have to like beat them over the head that it's a cake. You know, it's like the fact that you're almost like fooling them. And it's like, that's the brilliance of it. So, like I said, when I was looking at some of I was looking at this, I mean, it's like, some of the sports things that you were doing, it's like just mixing it. It's like, I mean, this is like there's no place to research what you're making here. You're just mixing it and just doing it. And there's things that people recognize, but you're making your own creation of this. And it's like, that's the brilliant part of this, is making something that hasn't been seen before.
Right. It's almost like a graphic artist in a way right there, Mickey, where she's almost like clip arting stuff together, but in a 3D sense.
Yep. It's
But
so
if you look at
inspiring.
that, Mickey, leaving that up, if you look at the Star Trooper map, I would be hard pressed to say that is not a actual plastic stormtrooper mask.
Yeah.
It's just that perfect. Even in the duck's head, I mean, it's so spot on from like the logo. Anyway, I'm just blown away, and the fact that it's cake is even one other step even more insane. You know, it's not
one of the
epoxy
things that I notice is like anybody could have done the mask and the jersey, but it's like going the extra step of it actually coming through ice. There's actually like or water or around it.
Did you
I
do
mean,
that?
it's like it's that extra little touch that's like, oh my God, this is insane.
Well, thanks.
Is that sugar, Kristen?
Yeah. I've been using some more isomalt over the past year. I would say I kind of got the bug after doing Halloween Wars. So I've been like boiling down isomalt and making shards. Or I made a hockey cake. My oldest son's really into hockey, so he designed his own birthday cake, and I made like the goal light. I put like a light on top of it, so it looked like the goal light. But I've been trying to grow, my skill set, and it's fun. But I burn myself all the time, and that's why I'm worried about trying to be make a carving attempt, because I'm a pretty clumsy. My favorite tool. I know, Matt, you actually mentioned this before, like tools. This is my favorite tool, is an X-Acto knife.
Yes.
The amount of times I've cut my is like, you would never think that a cake artist would be like, I cut myself. Like, I just always do. But yeah, this is my favorite tool. And if I don't have my dog's in the background. He hasn't been feeling good. It's him in the background. But yeah, an X-Acto knife is my favorite, and I'm worried. I'm always worried that I'm gonna cut myself.
Hey, there they are.
You say goodnight, Maddie?
Say goodnight.
Good night, bud.
Give me mommy.
Who are all those people?
He's the quiet one. He's not the. Apparently, one of them fell asleep on the couch. Two. Oh, they. So that's why they didn't make their cameo. So whenever they fall asleep on the couch, you know that they've had that I've had an interesting day.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, I changed.
Yeah, you've had the interesting day.
Kid with his head in the toilet.
That's just another day in paradise, really.
People don't know how glamorous my life is. Dirty diapers and So
we went through it.
I just carved that cake into a rough shape of prime rib with just that circle that I had.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that's literally
Yeah.
how you just kind of stenciled the shape. Wow.
Yeah, I just had a picture on my phone of a general shape, and then I just cut it up, and I'm just gonna put some icing on it.
So what's the? Yeah, what is the next step? So it's icing, then the fondant. Is that how that works?
Yeah,
There's a crumb layer on it, Matt. It's called a crumb layer, I think.
Crumb coat.
Oh, my bad. I don't know.
Well, but you're in Canada.
Crumb coat.
Same thing's different.
Oh, it's different. It's a different vernacular.
I don't know what vernacular means, but yes.
Yeah, it's funny because there are sometimes if I'm really lazy and I'm just doing something to make something fun, I sometimes won't put anything between the fondant and the icing. But yeah, you have the fondant likes to stick to icing, so even just a thin layer of, what did you call it, Paul?
A crumb layer. You made me feel bad for saying it.
That's the Boston lingo.
Leia.
Leia. Macaques.
Well, you know what's funnier than that? Somebody called me on saying drawing.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what did I say that was wrong? They would go, there's no R at the end.
Yeah, but you have an extra R in there.
Yeah, well, sometimes you get lost in our vocabulary, and we take it out of some words and put it in others.
That's right.
Well,
It's the words. It's the word's fault.
Just remember, where did the Pilgrims land? Okay, you guys have the accents. We were here first.
He always pulls the pilgrim thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock.
That's his go-to.
They say, "Where are we?" That was their first word.
Where the heck are we? I get made fun of for my accent a lot anytime I go to the US. So I feel like jesting out of understanding.
Yes, I don't. You guys just say a and a boot, and other than that, it's pretty straight down the middle. It's pretty good.
What about like house?
House.
Oh yeah, that's a little.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people once people get educated, they develop these accents. Like I'll have people come home and I'll be like, "You grew up right around the corner from me," and I swear to God, you're from Connecticut. Like, where did that come from? and educated new.
Or okay? Is that weird? Okay.
No.
Oh, okay, it's good. Yeah.
About
A boot.
about.
Yeah. You actually say it more like I would say it.
Yeah, but they don't. But there are times where I'm like, people in Canada don't say A, and then I'll run into somebody, and I don't know, like they're from the same place I am, but they'll be like, expensive, eh? I'm like,
well, I'll do the same thing.
Bob and Doug.
Say wicked smart. I'm like, nobody says wicked. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, dude, that's wicked cool. Again.
I actually met more people in Wisconsin and Hawaii that said A than anybody from Canada. Go figure that one out.
Yeah, you know what's funny? When I go to Chicago, when people from Wisconsin come down, they just A all day. Everything's A. All right, eh?
Yeah, it's a Midwest thing, I think.
Well, here in the Maritimes, like Prince Edward Island, but most specifically like Newfoundland, which is like the most eastern province in Canada, they have really strong accents. So I get where they do say A quite a bit, and but it makes everybody unique. The accent.
Nothing wrong with it.
So are you in Toronto, Kristen? Are you in Toronto, or are you north of there?
No, actually. So I am west of Toronto. So about like an hour. An hour and a half west. So the major highway that kind of goes from Toronto to a place called London is the 401. So I kind of live along that stretch. So it's nice because I'm in a smaller town, but I still have like pretty good accessibility to Toronto. Yeah.
Okay.
So you guys aren't Bruins.
That's going to the city.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I've been to LA, and I've been to Boston, and I've been to Matt. What part of Arizona are you from?
Tucson.
I haven't been.
So it's like if you've been to Arizona, you've been to probably Phoenix or Scottsdale or something like that. That's kind of the hub, and we're just an hour and a half south of there, but we're still an hour from the Mexican border.
Have you ever?
I'll give you just a snapshot. Wait, what was that, Paul? There was a dig on Arizona, I'm sure. Go ahead.
I said, have you ever been to the surface of the sun? That's literally where Matt, that's his address. It's 112 surface of the sun.
Well, I do know
that's where I live.
Yeah. Restaurants. I know
you've heard of it.
I opened a restaurant in Florida, and we had some people come from a sister restaurant in Arizona, and he said, like, you'll just be cooking and people just pass out because you don't sweat, but it's so hot. So you just have to almost like schedule that you drink water just so that doesn't happen. Because here, like I'm sure where you live, Paul, as well, it's like so humid right now.
I'm sweating in my basement. That's not a good thing, right? I'm actually sweating. It's terribly humid.
So Matt and I grew up in Phoenix.
Have to hydrate.
Good point.
Matt and I grew up in Phoenix. So one of the things that we missed was humidity. So whenever it's humid, goes to a place that's humid, that's hot to us probably. But it being 128, that's easily. We're just in the air conditioning. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Piece of cake. Stay inside.
Yeah, easy.
It's like in Canada, so north of like, the middle of Canada is like Edmonton kind of or Alberta. And so it's like the prairies, and it's really cold there. Sorry, I just have some fondant here. It's really cold there, but I went there for a month and I was so afraid of how cold it was. But because it's such a dry cold, I can tolerate it much easier than the cold that we have here because it's bone-chilling, damp, windy, freezing cold, which you can tell I love, right? It's just such a different way temperatures impact you based on how much moisture is in the air.
That's funny. I've heard it all now. A dry cold, because I've heard of a wet cold because if you actually get wet, you get colder quicker. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, oh my gosh. I don't even want to know anything about that.
Well,
Me either.
Yeah. Kristen, I know all too well about a cold, the wet cold. It's awful.
Yeah.
Well, we get nor'easters, so sometimes we'll get them in January, and it's like, okay, so we're going to get 18 inches of snow, but the last 6 inches are going to be sleet. So it's gonna be really cold and miserable, but not cold enough for it to snow. So while you're out there shoveling and making sure your roof doesn't collapse, you're gonna get 6 inches of absolute nightmarish snow.
Yeah.
Heavy to pick up.
Yeah, we when Maverick was a baby, Jeremy was was away for work, and we have all like interlock leading to our driveway, and the ice was so bad that we didn't have any salt. It was in his vehicle that he took with him, so I couldn't leave my house because there was this giant interlock area that was a sheet of ice. So I didn't know how to like get to my car with the kids safely. So I was like, I'll just stay in my house by myself with my 3 children for a couple days until it melts.
Oh my god,
a smart move. There's nothing worse than slipping on ice.
Yeah.
Oh.
So many broken collarbones up here. Like,
I can only imagine.
just a fondant colored piece of.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you just
That's all.
Man, you're not only you're fast.
How do you not get seams? You know what I mean?
So because this is so small, I just made sure to roll it so that I can make sure it goes over the edges and then just cut the excess off. It's when you're working with something that's really big, or if it's an awkward shape, like if I had something like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse head in 3D, I guess the easiest thing to come to mind, because it goes around the front and then up the nose, like it's almost easier, instead of just letting it rip, it would be easier to just do this part and then the seam that you try to buff together to do up the nose. I don't know if that's a weird.
No, I understand. I understand it. I even have trouble with what you just did with getting a seam. Maybe that's just me because I'm not very good at it.
Well, fondant's not my, like, modeling chocolate for sure. Like, this is my model. It's my favorite, and it's the best thing because it has this like waxy, slightly yellow texture. So it's beautiful to make like fat and meat, which is a very bizarre thing that.
Oh yeah.
The fat on the prime rib.
Yeah, that's what I use for it.
It looks like fat too. Again, that would be something. I don't know if I would be delighted or disappointed that it wasn't an actual prime rib, because who doesn't love a good prime rib? It's a cake. Like, that is just it's the kind of problem I need.
So all three of you have done competition. Would you say that competition has actually helped your creative process?
It didn't do anything for mine.
It didn't do anything. So would you think that, like, having less time to do something, could you do it if you had like a week to do it?
If I had a week to do it, geez, that's just an embarrassment of riches. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it would be. It would be.
You could go back if you could think about it and then fix your mistakes, like, you know, because hindsight's always 20/20. So whenever you make a mistake, you're like, if I had just done this one thing, if you got time to sleep on it, forget it. You can work out all the bugs. You can do whatever you want. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it hurt my process. I just was on a show with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? I was going on to that show, and I knew everybody that was going to be on the show, and I liked everybody on the show. And the vibe of the show wasn't like Halloween was. It wasn't like you're competing against this person. It was almost like have some fun. You know what I mean? Play with the other competitor. They never went to where they like, hey, tell him he's not doing a good job, or
yeah, right, Kristen.
So I'm like, they like the one time in the show I said something to like worry about your own pumpkin or something, but that's something I would say to like Matt or anybody that I'm friends with when you're just kind of goofing around and being sarcastic. I wasn't trying to drag on him in any way. It was we all got along pretty good on the show. Like John Davis and I, we've been carving since day one, 2017. The two of us had our first professional gig together. So it's like it's always been John and I. So to have him on the show was pretty awesome.
I don't think I ever did my best work when I was on that show, Mickey. I think what I found was that I was kind of babe in the woods, and I think Kristen, you probably knew this too. It's like I was just so happy to be there and among cool people and just be on TV. that I didn't really put too much thought into improving my craft. I was thinking more about, am I going to get this done? Is it going to look cool? And do I not look like a dumbass the whole time? I mean, that's kind of my three criteria. And at the end of the day, I think you're asking, Mickey, your question was, did you learn anything, or did you get better because of it? I think I wouldn't say I got better. I would definitely say I'm glad I did it because I got to know folks and some exposure. But as Paul and I have talked about, you don't make a living doing this, so you better love it. And if you can kind of pull something really cool out of an experience like that, that's even better. So that's kind of how I walk away from that thing.
Well said,
Yeah.
Hop. Well said.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, Halloween Wars fell in a weird time in my life because Maverick, my youngest, was 4 months old, and when I got cast for the show, he was like a newborn. So I think I was a bit of a. It wasn't. I'm so grateful for the experience, but it was a really hard time to. I mean, with all my kids, I was never away for any of them ever that long, let alone at 4 months. So I think I was in this like, I'm a fish out of water. I've learned. I mean, the people that I met, you know, all the other. I'm just going to speak mainly for the cake artists because that's just more relatable to like what I do. But like,
yeah,
you know, I've learned so many tips and tricks from them that like that's invaluable to what I do now because I could do what I did before before Halloween Wars, but I can do it in such a better way and with so much more confidence. And I'm grateful for those contacts. I think is the biggest thing. Like my cake, you know, world has grown so much, but I think there's a difference for cake artists. There's TV cake art, and then there's real cake art. And just because it's not, if you're a smart, fast worker, you can beat people who maybe have a better skill set.
Yes, I agree.
So that's you kind of play both.
Good point. Yeah.
I want to up my skills on what I do one-on-one, but I definitely think doing that show, I've picked up a lot of like, how can I win a cake show? Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. You got to know how to get through to the next round. You don't actually have to. You more or less have to utilize all your tips and tricks to get through. Sometimes like it's the cohesiveness of the piece, not so much like some elements I've seen on certain shows. Somebody will do one thing really, really well, and they'll still lose because the other team pulled the whole concept together better.
Yeah.
It's all about what the judges want to, what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a. Yeah. And even sometimes I'll watch shows, and now that once you know the kind of behind the scenes, like I'll say to Jeremy, like, oh, he's like, how do you know that? I'm like, oh, I just know because like you can kind of start, like, or I'll be like watching like America's Got Talent, and I'm like, oh, this is how they're gonna play this because of this. Like you kind of learn TV strategy.
Yeah,
that's the fun. Yeah, that's where the fun stuff comes in. But before I was like, I need to win a show so that I can show that I am this good. Now I'm like, no, like. If like your work speaks for itself, and a TV show is just like a cool, fun opportunity to hopefully win some money. But if you don't, then hopefully you get to meet some cool people and get some cool contacts. Like I think my mom changed a lot.
Exactly.
I hear you. That's exactly right. That's if you put too much pressure on winning the shows or trying to be on every single show, I think that kind of takes the fun out of it. Then you're just a professional cast member.
Yeah. And you feed right into the narrative too. A lot of times they want you to be a character in a lot of ways. And I mean, if you can get together with a really cool team, have some, fun experience. It's something that I've thought about many times. Would I do it again? What would I do differently? All that stuff. And it's just one of those things where to be even in the discussion is really cool. So I'm humble enough to say, all right, it's just fun to have that experience, and I'm just going to be happy with that no matter what happens.
So
Yeah.
here's an interesting little tidbit. I don't even think Matt or Paul knows this, and I know definitely Kristen doesn't know this because we just met today or yesterday probably. I actually, my girlfriend and I actually auditioned for Worst Cooks in America,
Wow.
and we actually we almost got
Oh,
to it.
neat.
It was very interesting. Casting. And one of the things I learned that there are a lot of people that try to get into that, and there's a lot of regulars. So I remember being on there, and we're talking to this guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm a huge Bobby Flay fan. I can't wait to meet Bobby Flay. Blah blah blah. I know everything about Bobby Flay. Da 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 da." Da. And I go, "Oh, and you have," and he says, "Oh, I do all this stuff like him. But he was trying to relate to him a lot." And I said, "Oh, you even have red hair like Bobby Flay." And he goes, "He has red hair." So I think you're right when there's just like there's people that just try to go for just getting in wherever they can get in and not really sweating the details, knowing how to navigate that casting thing. So it's like I think with skills like you guys have, it's much different. Oh, look at Paul. Paul, are you done, Paul?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, I'm not
awesome.
there yet. What 9 minutes left, and you're already done.
Well,
I love those bolts.
Kristen, like I said, right? You got if you're on time, you're late. And if you finish on time, you finish late. So try to be punctual about my stuff. Yeah, all right. You guys came up pretty good.
If you gave me like
I love the bolts.
So what's the hair made out of?
I was pulling it out of my own head the entire time. So I'm in a little bit of pain, but it's all worth it.
Sacrifice for your art.
Here's what I use is a kaboka squash.
Look at that.
And I actually had my wife bring down a cheese grater.
Okay.
I didn't like the way this was going, so I just used a cheese grater to get all the
So
slices.
cool.
The same cheese grater she bought me.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I was like, I'm never going to use this thing. And it's basically like my favorite tool now. So kudos to Lenora.
I have a question for you guys that has
So just
been
like go ahead,
Sorry.
Kristen.
Okay. How long, if you guys didn't have a time, like if you were carving that from beginning to end, like how long would you guys typically spend on one pumpkin? Let's just use pumpkin instead of the
Matt,
Sure. My average, I think, for a pumpkin, something bigger, would be, I don't know, probably 3 hours. And it's changed over time. It's like I think I've gotten to a point where if I can rough it out in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then it's the detail for the next two hours or so. But yeah, if it's really elaborate and it's the whole pumpkin, it's really large, it can be as many as like 4 or 5 hours or more. But yeah, like we talked about earlier, I think that when you start getting into too much detail and you're starting to really pressure yourself too much, then it suffers. So I try to max out at about 5 hours myself. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. Even the smaller ones have started to take me a lot longer because I'm trying to do things right by pushing and pushing. But it also goes back to what I said before about when is it done? I run out of that creative juice every now and again. So I've really adopted the start it the night before and go back and finish it, because you go at it with a fresh set of eyes. And if you have the space, pumpkins are tough because they're big. So you're really locked into a time limit on that one. You got to get it done in one night unless you have like a giant fridge that you can store fruit in. But these little guys, I'll work sometimes 5-6 hours on them just because it's not going to go bad on me. You know what I mean? If I spend 2 hours on it one night, like last night I spent 2 hours on it getting ready for tonight and just putted around for the hour and a half, but was able to detail and finish it out. And I'm way more happy with it than I would have been if I went, 4.5 hours on it at one time. Mm-hmm. But 4, 5, 6 hours, I'll bet this year I'll probably spend 6 or 7 hours on one, trying to get extra detail into them.
Nice. I know. I think it's interesting you said that you revisit them. That's a big thing that I do too. Like sometimes I'll just be carving like a face and something's not right, but you just for some reason you can't see it. Like you can't see what you don't like. So I'll go to bed, and then the next day, as soon as I wake up, I'll go into like the room where it is, and it'll be just like so glaringly apparent where it went wrong, and it's almost like killing me to not just fix it right away because it's just so obvious, like what wasn't obvious. And I think that's the number one sign where you're like, okay, like this is enough for tonight. And when you just can't see what the problem is.
Yeah, you have to be able to step back and reevaluate what you're doing, because it's funny. Like I'd say 9 times out of 10, I figure it out with like the old phrase, you sleep on it.
Yeah.
By the time you wake up, you're like, oh my God, I know what I did wrong. Or I know where I need to take this to get it right where I want it.
Yeah.
So it's just trial and error. It's fun, right? We're just playing.
Even if you walk away for
food, that's
even
all.
If you walk away for about 20 minutes, sometimes that might be enough.
Yeah.
That's true. That's just enough time to have a beer or two. You know what I mean, Matt?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna make a cake creation, and I'm gonna drink during it, and then show you guys and see what you think.
Oh, all right. You know what? Before we go, I want to bring something up that you just reminded me of. Which is, how did it come that made a cake out of one of Harper's pumpkins?
Oh, you can answer this one, Matt.
And Mickey, if you could.
Okay, so I'll try. I'll make an attempt. So Kristen and I became pals on Halloween Wars, and one of the things that was there it is. So one thing that I always strive to do is try to find something that I haven't seen before, and and try to make something like that. And when I saw Kristen's cakes, and I was like blown away by the realistic, non-food item things, I started thinking about having her do a carving of mine. So she and I was sitting in the airport one day going somewhere, and I pick her up the phone. I'm like, hey, I just want to talk to you about this silly idea. And then she like jumped on it and was like, this is cool. I think this. And so I started sending her pictures of ones that I thought would be cool. And then she said, well, I wanted to pick something that you like too. I'm like, I want you to pick. And of the ones that I sent her, and that she looked on my Instagram, this is the guy she picked. And it happened to be like one of my favorites because it was so expressive and just like this dopey multi-chin guy. And then I was like, oh, this would be great. And so I don't know, I think a month or two passed, Kristen, I don't remember, but
yeah.
And then I started getting, I think her calendar had cleared up enough to do this one. And I was so blown away when I saw it and the scale of it. This was like 3 times bigger than the pumpkin I even carved, if I remember. It was beautiful. And anyway, I'm just so impressed by her ability to take really, in my opinion, probably the first carved pumpkin face and make it into a cake that I've ever seen. And she just kicked it, blew it away. I'm just so proud of it.
I'm super impressed with it, and actually extremely jealous, to be honest.
Well, maybe this will be your year, Paul. Might be your year. I feel the need to make another pumpkin cake.
All right, but here's the deal. If you want to do that, I don't want to know which one you're going to do. I want to be surprised by it.
Okay.
And I'll know it's the one that you want to do.
Okay. Deal.
Oh my goodness.
It was a really fun project, and I found it was interesting because the face and the expression and the volume of where the nose came out and the eyes is so different than my mind works. So it was interesting because I felt like it was when you replicate something that somebody else created, you think totally different. It was really interesting.
I gotta tell you, it's one of my favorites. Well, this has been my it's been the highlight of my day, getting to create with you guys.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Well, thanks for being on. We appreciate it very much.
Hey, Kristen, you want to cut your well, I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions, but if you would cut that thing, I think it would be
sure
over the moon to see that as the finale.
All right. Yeah, I can do that. So should I hold it kind of like this?
Perfect.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Wow.
That's go.
That is insane.
Awesome.
Dunk, like just dunk it in the pudding.
Oh my God. That is awesome. Oh
It's
my
actually
God.
because I'm starving right now. I haven't eaten dinner.
Yeah, for real.
Nice
Oh
dinner.
no. A little bit of fondant for you there.
Corn.
That was not as
That wasn't sweet.
Not as appetizing.
not as wonderful, but the cake was good.
That is so great.
Yeah, I'll take a picture I'll take off my partly chewed fondant, but
Yes,
Well,
we
Oh, I
always
love it.
have pictures.
We could probably do this for another hour and a half. I'm sure this has been a great conversation, and we look forward to having you back, Kristen, because your wealth of knowledge on what you do is fascinating. So I know we're all inspired by it. So let me go around the room and see. Here's Paul's creation. Wow, I mean, just insane.
that's awesome.
Matt still working his through.
I got
his
a little
eyes
work
coming
to do
through.
still.
Yeah.
Veins. I love the
I
veins.
like that.
Yeah, it's super cool. You can tell definitely when you watch these things develop, you can actually see where you're going with it. It's just fascinating, and kudos to the CGI behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt made that too.
Let's see if I can do something here.
Oh,
Where is it? There.
She's got her CGI.
Wait, am I? Oh, there. I'm in the same as you now, Matt.
Yeah, she's sitting right by me. All right, here we go.
exactly. So beautiful. Well, again, thank you for joining us for another edition of Carvers and Creators. Be sure to follow Kristen on Instagram at the Girl Bakes. The Girl Next Door Bakes on Instagram. Paul, do you have any plugs that you want to put out there?
Yeah. Join us next week and follow Kristen.
Right on.
Oh, thanks,
Matt.
guys.
Keep it easy.
Exactly the same thing. Follow the Girl Next Door Bakes. She is phenomenal, and we couldn't be happier to have her with us today.
Yes, appreciate you
Thanks.
joining us. Thank you.
This has been great. Thank you so much. And thank you to all you out there watching. You've really overexceeded our expectations for this in 3 weeks. And we're growing fast. And this has been another great edition. Thank you to Kristen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Matt. And we will see you next week. Good night.
All right. Thanks, Mickey.